Hello everybody, it's I, the Barango, the guy that tries to entertain you with BattleBots predictions every week. Is it working? So after this recent episode, we now know what the bracket looks like. We have our 32 participants in the final little tournament bit. We have our seeds, and of course, we have a lot of opinions of what it should have looked like. So we're gonna break this thing down bit by bit, and we're gonna see how many of the positions the selection committee got right, who should have been in, who shouldn't have been in, and a lot of other stuff. Also, yes, I know it's the middle of February. Look, we're going to take down that tree eventually, alright? Just do me a favor and, ignore it for a little bit. There. Object permanence. If you don't see it, it doesn't exist. So let's start by taking, a generic glance at the table and seeing what things look like. On paper, if you take a quick glance, not much looks wrong. Top 4 seems right. Some of those last few bots, okay, there might be a little bit of room for debate. All around, it seems like it's not too bad. That's at least what I thought. I'll be willingly saying that right now. But now that I've dissected it a little bit, I can see a few issues. But we need to make sure that everyone's arguing the correct issues, because some people are saying things that just don't make sense. At times during this video, I'm going to pull up a little Word document I've got opened here. I did a little bit of cross-checking, cross-referencing to see what some of the stats look like for the bots. I've gone and figured out their records, and then I also figured out how many bots did they beat that ended up making the tournament, just as another way to try and check who should have been where. Let's start from the top, is probably the best place to start. Our top 4, Hydra, Bloodsport, Copperhead, Uppercut. 3 of those bots are unbeaten, and one of them, the only one that lost to who ended up being the number 1 seed. Hydra is the number 1 seed. It feels right. It makes sense. With the whole controversy aside, I was one of the people that thought he could have been disqualified for that fight. But when you take the fact that he wasn't disqualified, it was deemed fair. It was a dominant win against Huge, a decent bot. Add on to that, a dominant win against a good Uppercut and a dominant win against a good Witch Doctor. Nobody else is deserving of the number 1 seed. Maybe Bloodsport, but he has one of his wins against Kronos, who didn't make the tournament. So I think we're good. I like Copperhead being up here. He and Bloodsport both only beat 2 bots that ended up making the tournament. Copperhead beating P1, who didn't make it. Bloodsport beat Kronos. So maybe you could flip-flop, but again, they're generically in the right spot. And Uppercut being 4th works for me. I don't have any complaints. When we get into the next section of bots is where I start to get a little frustrated. Black Dragon comes in at number 5. He's got a 2-1 record. You think, that's not bad. Black Dragon's a decent bot. He only had 1 win against the bot, though, that made it into the tournament. That win, of course, came against Kraken, which was a little debatable. The other win came against Claw Viper, who's not in the tournament. So when you break it down that way, Black Dragon doesn't have the best strength of schedule, does he? I would say he could go a little bit lower than 5. Especially, let's take the next chunk of 6 bots. It's Black Dragon, Endgame, Sawblaze, Whiplash, Valkyrie, Scorpius. All of those bots sit on a 2-1 record. However, when you look at the strength of schedule, a couple of those bots have only beaten 1 bot that is also in the tournament. Black Dragon's one of them. The other is Sawblaze. The only bot he beat that was also in the tournament is Whiplash, who's right behind him. I don't know what it is. Sawblaze and the 7th seed are apparently a match made in heaven. But when looking at it like that, especially knowing one of Sawblaze's wins was, a gimme against Rusty, he should not be 7th. No way he should be 7th. And if we keep looking at the top 10 and how maybe those 2 bots should be lower, sitting right outside the top 10, we've got Jackpot 3-0, Mad Catter 3-0, and then Beta 3-0, but I think we all realize why he's in the middle of the pack. In fact, you can honestly argue Beta shouldn't even be that high because he had 2 gimme wins and then the controversy against Rotator. So 13th, you might be a little generous there. So right then and there, I'm thinking maybe you could bump up Jackpot and Mad Catter at least 2 spots and move everyone else up. So what if you... Before I say something dumb in the video, I'm going to re-record this bit so that I make more sense because I realize what I said wasn't that smart. So, here is how I would have actually seeded 5 through 12. Endgame still gets 5th seed in my book. He's done enough to earn it. Let's go ahead and give Scorpio 6 because he had a decent schedule. Then we can throw in our 3-0 Mad Catter and Jackpot. I swapped them around because Jackpot's schedule was a little bit weaker, I think, than Mad Catter's. Then I realized that you have to have Sawblaze above Whiplash because Sawblaze beat Whiplash, but then Whiplash has to be above Valkyrie because Whiplash beat Valkyrie. So I threw all of them down at the bottom, and then Black Dragon can suck it in 12th. Finishing off the top half then, we have another trio of 2-in-1 bots. It's Lockjaw, Fusion, and Malice. And I have another little problem that I'd like to get out there right now. Of those three, Malice is the only one that has a win against a bot that's in the tournament, that being Shatter. Was it a convincing win? I mean, no, it was a push fest for most of it, and there was some people that thought it could have gone to Shatter, fair enough. But if Shatter is in the tournament, that means Malice beat a bot in the tournament. Lockjaw beat Captain Shredderator, which we know that's practically a gimme at this point, because something always goes wrong with them. And then Big Dill. Fusion beat Aegis more easy. Like, come on. Now let's get into the bottom half. Starts off with 17th, 18th, and 19th going Gigabyte, Tantrum, Shatter. Let's also include 20th because Ribot's in there. All four of them are at 2-in-1 records. Nobody beat a bot that's in the tournament, so I think we can see why all of these bots fall into this equation. Yeah, they didn't beat anyone good, but they do have winning records, so I think all four of them probably fall into good spots. Now it starts getting incredibly chaotic because all of the big name 1 and 2s have to start coming in. And it starts off with 21st going to Tombstone. Rotator's in 22nd, Witch Doctor's in at 23rd, all in 1 and 2. All three of those bots are above the 2-in-1 Sub-Zero. Now, okay, obviously this is down to a strength of schedule thing. Tombstone, Rotator, and Witch Doctor are always going to get bigger fights than Sub-Zero. And I don't think anyone can complain that a 2-in-1 bot is below all of those 1 and 2 bots. If we get more specific, Witch Doctor is the only bot that's got a win against somebody that's in the tournament, and that was against Slammo towards the end. Tombstone beat Slapbox, Rotator beat Big Dill, so another little bit of fine tweaking. It seems like at this point, they just kind of knew where some bots were going to go and just slapped them in a group and didn't really think of fine-tuning it, because I think if you're going to have Tombstone, Rotator, and Witch Doctor starting off the low 20s, Witch Doctor should be ahead of Tombstone and Rotator. It's fine margins, but that's what fans want, I think. The fine margins to be evaluated properly. A couple more of the big name 1 and 2s come in. It's Huge at 25th, Kraken at 26th. I'm glad that they put Huge ahead of Kraken, considering that Huge beat Kraken in the regular season. That should be a thing. Both of them, of course, having one win against somebody that's in the tournament. Kraken's one win coming against Witch Doctor, so that's pretty good. So hell, let's tweak it even more. Huge should be above Kraken, who should be above Witch Doctor. So let's take Sub-Zero and knock him down a couple more places and move Huge and Kraken up. All right, now for the final 6, where I know there's going to be a lot to discuss, because we've got 4 of those bots having winning records. 2 of them do not, and obviously, when it gets this tight for that last spot, yeah, there's going to be a lot of debates. Who should have been in and who shouldn't have been in. So, let's go ahead and take a look. 27th is Perfect Phoenix, followed by Slammo, then Hijinks at 29th, and Mammoth comes in at 30th. Those are the 4 with the winning records, and guess what? We have another easy way to dissect who should be where. Only one of those bots got one win against somebody else that's in the tournament. Can you guess who it was? Drum roll, please. It's the one lowest of the 4, Mammoth. Come on. And like, I get it. Mammoth lost to Hypershock, who is a weird one. And then his other win was against Deadlift. I get it, but he beat Huge. We know Huge is a good bot. He's in the tournament. And then at that point, if you're moving him up, you might as well move him above that group of 1 and 2 popular bots, because he's got a better record than them now. So we just said, let's bump Sub-Zero down, move Huge and Kraken up, and that Witch Doctor should be above Tombstone, Rotator, and Witch Doctor. Maybe Mammoth should just be over all of those? Where would you draw the line at that point? And now we haven't even talked about the final 2 yet. Gruff is 31st, Hypershock is 32nd. Look, I get at this point that you might be reaching for straws, because if 32 bots of a field of like, what, 60 are getting in, you're going to have the losing records get in. You're going to have your Washington football team get in the NFL playoffs. Like, it was going to happen. But I still feel like we could have selected a little bit better. I know the main talking point for this part of the bracket is P1 should have been in as 32nd over Hypershock. So I want to kind of dissect that a little bit. First off, yes, P1 is a 2-in-1 bot and has a better record than a lot of what we're seeing right now. Now we can go ahead and look at strength of schedule to see if he actually deserves to be in. Also, probably quality of the wins would probably be important, right? So P1 had the victory against Smee that we just saw, which I gotta say was one of my top fights of the season. Screw this Valkyrie Rotator crap. That was good, but this was better. P1 put on a clinic. I'll give him that. And then I think, what was it, Kronos that he beat in an untelevised fight? I don't totally remember. I think what hurts him the most is bots in this area usually always get their prove it match. If, like Slammo, for instance, he got 2 wins, he was looking pretty good, so they're like, all right, let's give you Witch Doctor. Let's see if you're ready to start dancing with the big boys. On that occasion, of course, Slammo failed. Witch Doctor killed him. And on P1's prove it match against Copperhead, guys, he failed. He failed miserably. He lost in 2 hits, guys. So, as much as it kind of sucks to say, because then it makes it feel like record means nothing, those 2 measly wins against bots that weren't good enough for the tournament don't mean as much as a horrendous loss. Now let's take the focus away from P1 and look at the other ones he's competing against. Another one that I'm still unsure about the positioning of is Sub-Zero. So let's go ahead and take a look at Sub-Zero. Well, his loss came to Jackpot, who we know is a 3-0 bot, who we know is the 11th seed. I guess the way it turned out, that's a good loss. However, at the time, it wasn't a good loss because Jackpot was having all sorts of problems and Sub-Zero failed to take advantage. Realistically, it should have been a win for Sub-Zero because Jackpot was vulnerable and he didn't take it. So that would have changed everything. And at that point, let's go ahead and take a look at his wins. Sporkanok barely worked and Grabot barely worked. So talk about gimme wins. Sub-Zero had quite the gimme schedule and only went 2-1. He should have been convincingly 3-0, and he still managed to nearly lose against Sporkanok when he nearly got himself jammed in the little wall bit. Alright, let's look at one of the other bots in question, Gruff. I'm not gonna lie, I thought Gruff was done for. I didn't think he had a chance in hell. He got 1 win against an unfit Hypershock, I guess is the best way to put it. He got him on the off day. Absolutely got schooled by Whiplash, and never properly entered the arena working, and suffered because of it, against Extinguisher. I get the 1 loss against Whiplash is something respectable to have on your resume, but it was an ass beating. Like, it wasn't even close, guys. So, if you want to be mad at P1 not making it, you might want to look either at Sub-Zero or Gruff, as opposed to looking at Hypershock. But let's go ahead and take a look at Hypershock too. We haven't gotten to him yet. Just mentioned Gruff, obviously. Hypershock was the victim in that fight. Then he came and schooled Mammoth, which it almost sounds like a gimme match, but not everyone is able to school Mammoth. He's got a close to 500 record. He's gotten a decent amount of wins. He's not a bad machine. And then, of course, Hypershock had to face Endgame, which didn't go very well. But based on strength of schedule, Hypershock fought 3 bots that have made the tournament under that regard. Gruff not only fought a bot that wasn't in the tournament, he lost to a bot that's not even in the tournament. And then against Sub-Zero, gimme fights. Absolute gimme fights. So, I think just because they threw Hypershock at the 32 seed, I think that's why everyone's taking their anger out on Hypershock in your defense of P1. There has to be a good balance between your record and your strength of schedule. I don't think either one should outweigh the other. They're just as equally important because you're going to have a good record if your strength of schedule sucks, and you're going to have a bad record if it's good. So there needs to be some sort of balance. So I think this is what I'm actually going to say ultimately for what would be the final few spots. P1 can get in, that's fine. Go ahead and put him around like 30th. Then Gruff can go ahead and stay. And because of strength of schedule, I think Hypershock can stay. I don't think Sub-Zero is going to be a good inclusion in the competition. It's practically a toss-up at this point. There's so much to dissect because we got a pair of 2-1s, a pair of 1-2s, a pair of decent schedules, a pair of terrible schedules. Like, it's so all over the place. Every time I want to record what I think my answer should be, I keep changing my mind. I'll give it to you guys. P1, you could argue, did enough to get in. His loss of the bots in the equation here is the highest ranked with Copperhead. One of his wins we just saw was an absolute clinic. He was so convincing. And Sub-Zero was also convincing with his pair of wins, but it's because of his pair of wins. Like, Smee would beat Grabot, and then P1 beat Kronos, right? Kronos would probably beat Grabot. Both of those would probably beat Sporkanok. I would be willing to say that. So I would be willing to say P1's wins are better than Sub-Zero's wins, and then his loss is better because it was a better bot, even though he lost it in a worse way because he was 2 hits and dead. Sub-Zero was just awful. Just awful. You know what? I'm going to backtrack on some of that. Sorry. I'm going to leave what I just said in, but let's backtrack even more. I'm looking at you, Hijinks. You beat Chomp. Congratulations. You lost to Claw Viper. Not in it. And who was the other one you beat? Who was the other one that Hijinks beat? It was War Easy, right? Or was it Axolotl? I don't remember. But maybe that's the point. The bots you beat were so just useless that maybe we just kick Hijinks out and let all 4 of those other ones in. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Let's stop that part of the video there, and I'll let you tell me between Sub-Zero, Hijinks, Gruff, Hypershock, and P1, 4 get in. Who do you think should honestly be the one that misses out? And I'm not gonna lie, go ahead and comment whatever you want, because I think we've made good cases for all of them to miss out. Alright, that was the kind of tough part of the video. Let's go to a more fun part of the video. I'm gonna give my entire bracket predictions right now. We'll see how many I get right towards the end. I know all of you guys are gonna be doing the same thing. For the record, for each individual week, this won't count for the predictions stuff, so every time we put out BattleBots predictions, just don't worry about your overall picks. Just do what they're gonna show that night, okay? So starting from the top left, we've got Hydra and Hypershock. I don't think anyone has any second guesses that Hydra is going to win this fight. Just below that, Malice and Gigabyte. This will be a really fun one, and I'm getting comparisons to Bloodsport and Kronos. Malice is going to have a hard time carving through Gigabyte's hard, heavy shell. And if anything, it might cause Malice to break, or he might need to take a break. And I think Gigabyte is better than Kronos. He's going to take advantage of that. So Gigabyte. Whiplash versus Huge, we saw somewhat recently. Was it last year or 2 years ago? I don't remember. Whiplash won a close decision. I think it'll unfortunately go the same. I would love to see Huge win, but I don't see it happening. Valkyrie and Sub-Zero, do we need to talk about that any longer? We just dissected why Sub-Zero shouldn't even be here. Now going to the lower left, for a long time I was preparing to say that I thought Hijinks could actually cause an upset here, and then I forgot Uppercut has that solid freaking block in the front that he could put on. Hijinks will eventually break. I think Uppercut's okay. Beta versus Ribot. I like Ribot. They're a solid bot. They have good weapons, but I think Beta's just gonna outdrive them and outpush them and maybe get a couple hits in there. Black Dragon versus Slammo. You know, this is actually interesting. I didn't really consider this until just now. Slammo gave Witch Doctor a hard time in terms of ground clearance. He's got good ground clearance. Black Dragon's a good driver, so Slammo would have to basically drive the perfect fight to make a win happen, which is the same thing he needed to do against Witch Doctor. It didn't work out too well. I think I'm just going to go ahead and stick with Black Dragon. Mad Catter versus Tombstone has to be one of the picks of the round. Feel bad for Mad Catter. You went 3-0 and then you got Tombstone. Like, what are the odds of that? I'd be willing to say that Mad Catter with a very strong wedge plow in the front should be just fine. Tombstone will break himself eventually. Top right, Bloodsport versus Gruff. Initially, I'd be worried for Bloodsport because we know Gruff is a tank, but Gruff looked terrible against Extinguisher. I don't know what's wrong. Bloodsport has looked great this year, so I think he's got it, no problem. Fusion versus Tantrum. It's going to be a fun one. Tantrum will definitely try to bring it to Fusion, but I think Fusion's weapon's going to be a little bit better, a little stronger, and he's going to take out Tantrum, unfortunately. Sawblaze, Kraken. Ooh, it's a tough one. They're going to have a tough time grabbing each other, so it's going to be who's going to be a little more stable, better ground clearance, and get under the other, and I think Sawblaze will just be able to scoop Kraken up too much. Scorpios Witch Doctor. Oh boy, this will be fun. I'm wondering if Witch Doctor is going to be able to put something in front that will at the very least cause Scorpius to kind of bounce off and bounce around them. Then maybe in moments like that is when they could take advantage with their weapon. And Witch Doctor's a type of bot he won't let up when he gets an opening. So I'm going to give Witch Doctor the upset. Bottom right, Copperhead Mammoth. I'm sorry, Mammoth. Let's just move on. Lockjaw versus Shatter. It's gonna be fun. Will Lockjaw burn out, though? Because Shatter can take the hits, we know that. For now, I'm gonna say I think Shatter could pull that off. Endgame versus Perfect Phoenix, it's gonna be fun, but I think it's going to be Endgame. And then Jackpot versus Rotator. What setup would Rotator have to combat that? I think as long as Jackpot is kind of patient and keeps the weapon facing Rotator, he should be fine, because we know it's got power. That brings the round of 16 to Hydra versus Gigabyte. It's going to be fun, but I think Hydra will eventually get it. Flip Gigabyte, the staff breaks or something. Whiplash versus Valkyrie. Having literally just seen it, I think we know who's going to win. Uppercut versus Beta. Beta isn't going to have a lot of good spots to hit Uppercut, and they're going to be tentative anyway. But Uppercut might also win the ground clearance battle, so let's go Uppercut. So Black Dragon versus Mad Catter. What do you think Mad Catter would choose? You think they'd go for the axe and try to snipe his belt? Probably. I'd be willing to say Black Dragon could pull this off. Bloodsport versus Fusion is going to be fun, if that's what ends up happening. And they both got good weapons. Fusion, we know, has had problems with the floor, so I think Bloodsport can take advantage of that, get the proper angles, win the fight. So Sawblaze versus Witch Doctor would then be my round of 16 match, and I know we've seen that before, and Witch Doctor kicked Sawblaze's ass, so might as well say that again. Copperhead versus Shatter. I think It's another tough one, because I was going to say Copperhead could easily win this, but for the fact that Shatter is hard to knock out. So, like, yeah, maybe Copperhead gets the hits, but we know Copperhead has his issues, you know? Sometimes he struggles to drive, sometimes the weapon turns off. Is that going to be enough of an opening for Shatter to get enough shots? Also, Copperhead's small, so can Shatter get enough accurate shots? I'm going to say no, and I'm going to go ahead and gamble, maybe slightly, and say Copperhead. Not really a gamble, he's the 3 seed. Endgame versus Jackpot would be a little scary, but I feel like Endgame is going to be a little stronger, and will be able to tank those hits, and he'll be fine. So then quarterfinals would be Hydra versus Whiplash. Ooh. We know Hydra gets stuck on the floor sometimes as well. We know Whiplash is a good driver, so I'm not sure. It also, I guess, would depend. Would Whiplash try to do just lifter? Or do you think they would they maybe consider backing into Hydra with the weapon behind them to try and get hits on the top? I could see Matt trying that. He would just leave himself exposed to flips. I think Hydra's strong enough that he would be able to take some of these hits. So let's go Hydra. You know what? I'm second guessing it. I'm getting flashes of Whiplash trying to circle Hydra. Hydra tries to move in, hits a wall, hits a seam in the floor, and he stops. Whiplash keeps circling, and then hits him, or gets under and lifts him, pushes him to the wall somewhere, and just doesn't let up. Because if Whiplash gets one opening, we know he's that bot that just doesn't give it away. Like Son of Waiachi, like we just saw with Valkyrie. I think I'm going to go ahead and say Whiplash would take it. Down in the bottom left, who do we got? It's Uppercut and Black Dragon. I would give it to Uppercut because I thought Black Dragon was going to beat Copperhead in ground clearance, and he didn't. So now I question his ground clearance and how good it actually is. Top right is Bloodsport and Witch Doctor, which would be an incredibly fun match, and could go either way. I'd be willing to say Bloodsport is a good enough driver that they can hit Witch Doctor where they want to get the hits, but you know, Witch Doctor's going to have a lot of armor on the front, and he's a good driver as well when the weapon isn't broken, causing him problems. You know, I'll take a gamble there. Witch Doctor shocks the world and beats Bloodsport to go on to the semis. Then what are we looking at? Copperhead and Endgame is going to be a lot of fun for sure. Endgame, I think, has a little more control than Copperhead, but they both have had their issues. I'm going to say Copperhead. For some reason, I want to say Copperhead, and I think it's because I underestimated his ground clearance against Black Dragon, and it worked. So I think I'm thinking about the next fight and underestimating it again. If Endgame has any kind of long forks that go at Copperhead, he pops one of those up, and Endgame's never going to win the ground clearance battle ever again. So let's go Copperhead. That leaves a final four of Whiplash, Uppercut, Witch Doctor, Copperhead. So the first was Whiplash and Uppercut. We know Whiplash can tank hits, and he doesn't really gyrate like we might see from Uppercut, so it might give him more openings. Uppercut would have a more powerful weapon. I just don't know. I don't know. I think I could see Uppercut winning. I think he would win it in the ground clearance battle. Uppercut in the final would face Witch Doctor or Copperhead. Ooh, boy. I feel like Witch Doctor would be a little more solid. And then I would leave a final of Uppercut in Witch Doctor. And ooh, who would I pick? Who would I pick? Who would I pick? Both would be worthy finalists. I'd give it to Uppercut. I think. I don't know what Witch Doctor's got for ground clearance. It's kind of flatter sometimes, that plow set up in the front. I'm sure they got something that I can't quite think of. I like Uppercut's chances for some reason. Uppercut's gonna be the champion in my eyes. Alright, so that's all for this video. Let me know what you thought of the breakdown of the seeds. Who did you think of those 5 I named earlier between Sub-Zero, P1, Hijinks, Gruff, and Hypershock? Who should actually have missed out? Let's leave it to those 5 right now. In terms of the bracket picks, what are some of your biggest shocks that you're expecting? Either way, whether it's a low seed beating a high seed or just somebody making it farther than they should. Let me know. Let's discuss. Make sure you guys leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new here. We do a lot of BattleBots content. We're going to have another big tournament coming up sometime in the summer. There's a lot of stuff in the past. I'll make sure links are all in the video and description so you won't be too lost on what to do. And if you are lost, just ask one of the regular subs like Kai or Cap or Matt or Dom or me. I'll be there too. I'll help you out. I don't know. All right, I got to work on other stuff. Thank you for watching. Take care.